Okay, so it's very loud. I'm sure everyone can hear this. So, welcome to the inaugural presentation at the Post-Purchase Theatre. Thank you for choosing me. Even if there was just two people here, I'd be delighted to see you. So I'm really thrilled that there's so many. So thank you for coming. I'm going to be speaking about hypercare, the first 30 days. And so hypercare is a term that if you're in software delivery, you'll be very familiar with. It covers that initial onboarding period. Sorry, there's a lot of noise in my own ear. It covers the first 30 days, first period for a customer to understand your product and utilize it. And there's a high risk of churn during this period. So I've coined that phrase hypercare to talk about in this presentation, the first 30 days. So my name's also Annie Mamigonians, and I'm going to start off by just introducing myself, and you understand where I've come from and why I'm speaking on this particular subject today. So, first thing, yes, that's a microscope. I'm actually a chartered engineer. I'm a biochemical engineer. That's where thank you for that reaction, sir. Appreciated. I'm actually a chartered engineer, and I studied biochemical engineering, and I worked in pharmaceuticals in the onset of my career. So nothing to do with commerce or customers. So what we're going to do is move on very quickly from that. Thank you, sir, for that acknowledgement. I then moved into the world of operational excellence, so process improvement, and in my case, it was lean, the Toyota way. And I discovered how we can improve processes and business operations through using employees and coming up with solutions to employee problems, and therefore the customer solutions are delivered in a better way. It also stands to reason that we're supporting employees in their morale and their experience during this time, so I thought this was a win-win situation. I then worked as a consultant across a number of industries, so service industries, IT, telecommunications, e-commerce retailers as well. I've been in a few warehouses as well and seen the back office operations in those. And then about 10 years ago, it's an ATM machine, I moved into financial services. So I've stayed in financial services for the last 10 years, moved a couple of organizations, and started off with the operational excellence, process improvement, employee focus that I had, and was able to support some revenue generating initiatives that those employees were driving as green belts, as we train them. So revenue generating or cost reduction opportunities that the business had but hadn't observed or seen. So a lot of low-hanging fruit does exist. And use their inherent expertise for their processes and what they know. And then we move on to the last few years. As I said, financial services has been the core of what I've been involved in. I've shifted my attention towards customer experience at this point. So I've shifted looking outside of the organization. In addition to that employee experience, I now link that to what the customer is seeing and doing at each interaction point. And particularly where I was, in this case, in the previous role that I had, I was looking at customer onboarding. So onboarding them to different bank accounts and services. This can be quite long-winded, can be quite complex, can be involved depending on the product. Now, I support organizations in driving a highly customer-focused service design and delivery transformations, looking at both the customer and the employee. So if anyone wants to speak to me about that afterwards, more than happy to have a chat. So that's the quick introductions out of the way. So let's go back to the first 30 days. First 30 days post-purchase. I've put up what is a typical customer experience journey. Okay, it starts at awareness and it finishes at advocacy, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. I've talked about the first 30 days specifically, and I will today, because I think there's a few side effects of not getting it right in that very short initial period. And in some cases, in fast-moving consumer goods, you've got less time than that to make your impact and retain that customer and for them to return. So timeframes can change, but for me, the first 30 days. So what are customers doing in that first 30 days? Well, from my perspective and my understanding and research, the first thing would be obviously, and we're all consumers, getting to grips with your product or service and extracting that value. That's your immediate reaction. If it's clothing, it's very, very straightforward. You receive the clothing, especially if you've bought it online, and you inspect it. If it passes muster, you try it on. If that works out, then happy days, put on that clothing, enjoy, rinse, repeat. If it's a product, there is a level of setup or personalization you need to do, be it a mobile phone. We've all been there, and these things get easier and easier to set up as vendors understand the challenges that consumers have. But still, there's a little bit of time invested in there, and there's certain things a customer might need during that period. If it's a service, so in this case, a bank account, there is a portion beyond setup of setting up that mobile app or that mobile banking or setting up your account, which is how the customer is starting to interact with you to utilize that product or service. So it may be borrowing money, it may be depositing money, it may be interacting with you to get some additional servicing support. So that's what the customer is obviously doing in that very short period of time. The next thing they're going to be doing, oh, that's glitched for some reason. The next thing they're going to be doing, hopefully you can see that, is reflecting on the experience, right? So this is going to be, once they're happy with that product, they've got over that initial excitement, they're thinking, well, how did that go? Was it good? Was it bad? And I think to compare this to like a first date is how did that go? And they're going to sit back and think about, obviously, if it's not been great, that's going to predominantly focus on their mind. But if it's been good, what kind of lasting impression do you want to leave? If there's no physical interaction, then the interaction is going to be as good as your platforms allow. So your user experience needs to be as good as it can be, as an interactive and supportive as possible. In marketing, we call this one of the moments of truth, that post-purchase point, where you have an opportunity to make an indelible impact on that customer and their recollection of you and your brand. So purchasing is one of those steps, and immediately afterwards they're reflecting on that. I'm sorry, I don't know what's happened to the graphics. One of the things to think about as well, and it hits all of us, is suffering with buyer's remorse. So buyer's remorse, I'm sure you're familiar with, you've had waves of this in the past, is when you're thinking, did I choose the right product? Did I choose the right company to buy from? Did I look into all the options I had before I pressed go on this? And finally, should I have spent more? Should I have spent less? Essentially, all those things rolled into one, depending on what your product service is that you've committed to as a consumer. Humans are very good at rationalizing their behavior and their actions. So if there's a way to rationalize, a human will find that way and go, oh, absolutely. In this case, if they cannot rationalize that purchase, and we'll talk a little bit about what kind of things may cause that effect, they are going to request a refund. And as we know, most brands will offer a refund within 30 days. Under distance selling regulations, as we all know, you have a 14-day cooling off period. So there's an opportunity for that buyer to enlist that buyer's remorse and say, no, I'm not happy, for multiple reasons. One of the reasons here could be the inability to access the value that I talked about in the first point. So if I cannot, because I don't understand or I haven't been supported to set up correctly, then I'm going to feel that buyer's remorse more strongly, and I'm not going to hesitate. I've been in situations myself where I've bought something online, it's been a service package platform. Within 10 minutes, I know it's not for me. My expectations were not met. There's no opportunity there. I was given an immediate refund because they want to do the utmost in customer service, but there's no opportunity there for them to tell me and sell me their product and tell me this will be of use to me, because they don't understand me or who I am. Very transactional. So that's about the UX. And then the last one I just want to bring up here is something that occurred to me. We have a prolific opportunity with the buy now, pay later schemes to create incremental charges rather than a single purchase that you're going to make in a single financial transaction. So what happens if a buyer are not 100% convinced but has purchased your product and is kind of utilizing it or keeping hold of it, trying to rationalize it, and then the next payment flags up on their account, there's an opportunity and a trigger for them again to consider, was this the right move? Because actually I'm still paying for this. So think about some of those things. A bit of variety there, but gives you a thought about why those first 30 days are important. And finally, it is important, therefore, for us to understand as organizations what the customer's thinking, feeling, and doing throughout this 30 days and obviously beyond. And prior to this, of course, but we're talking about those 30 days. So that's my rationale for the importance of these 30 days. So what opportunities exist for us, for organizations, within that first 30 days? Well, I've said it once, I'll say it again. Understanding what your customers are thinking, feeling, and doing is key for customer experience. So you're going to have to obtain some insights one way or another. And we have many channels and mechanisms to do this in our organizations. We have NPS, Net Promoter Scores. We have surveys that we can send out post-transactions at different intervals on a batch basis. Don't forget, there's also all that unsolicited free feedback. I'll talk about that again later. So your social media, your Trustpilots, they're around the corner. Complaints data. Reason codes from your call centers if you do have a call center. What are people saying? What are they challenging? Again, a lot of this can be distilled down into KPIs and very high-level dashboards. You need a little bit more essence and qualitative analysis beyond that if you can, but it's a start. So you have a lot of valuable insights hopefully already in your organization. Whether you're using them and doing something about it is another question. Next thing I want to touch on, hopefully some of you have heard about the ladder of loyalty. It's not a new concept. It was derived from relationship marketing. First came to notice through Andrew Payne in the 1990s. And it's a concept that focuses on the transition states of, we'll start off with a prospect. A prospect has no relationship or understanding or awareness of your brand whatsoever. To a customer, in this definition I'm using, it's someone that's a trialist. They've tried you once and had a successful, hopefully, purchase with you. To a client, definition of that is someone with repeat purchases and an understanding of your brand. To an advocate. So the advocate is going to be someone that insists upon your brand. And I was thinking about this and I thought if Apple ever launches a car, Apple consumers will be first in line for that car no matter what. That's that kind of level of commitment. So although it might sound a bit early to be talking about the ladder of loyalty and thinking about loyalty, it's never too early to start and be aware of what your consumers are thinking and feeling. Create those great experiences and drive that loyalty. As we know, loyal customers buy more often, require less discount, demand less support, and refer you and your brand to their friends and family. And there's a statistic that's well quoted online. I've seen it everywhere. Only a 5% increase in customer retention can increase company revenue by 25 to 95%. That's a vast range, but it's quoted everywhere online. So just think about those opportunities, and I think we all understand loyal customers are the best. Then the last point I want to just raise here is that starting to engage your customers with your brand more directly to support innovation. Again, it's never too early. Take it as it comes at this first 30 days point, but get your customers to help you innovate, okay? It's early doors, but create those opportunities for the customer to work with your brand and shape what they need, how they need it, and share stories about their lives so that you can start developing solutions, but involve them. And focus groups obviously have a place, but you can go beyond that. You can actually start partnering and involving specific customers. If there's a small, very private organization or high value customers, utilize those. They will be interested in, especially if they're advocates, in supporting you. So think about that. So those are the opportunities. Let's go quickly. What strategies could you employ during hypercare? First thing, collect and analyze the voice of the customer. I've spoken about those insights, the surveys. There are direct primary sources I've talked about, but the free and direct sources are those social medias, those LinkedIns, analyzing complaints, recommendations. You need to understand demographics to an extent as well. So I'd advocate starting to, if you haven't, which you may have, understanding your segmentation of your customers and looking at personas that align with your target market so you can understand who you're reaching out to and who these individuals are. Second is act on customer pain points and resolve those issues experienced. The first 30 days can be key with how that customer is finding your product. What have you learned through the customers, your own colleagues, your own employees who are servicing those customers or looking at the analytics? And what can you do about providing and testing some pain point solutions? Take the lessons learned, improve the experience. Be proactive. Again, I'm going to say involve your customers as much as you can in that solution design. Test, test, test. And use this mechanism, especially with your customers, to differentiate yourselves from your competitors. There's always an opportunity to use automation, personalization, and innovation. Each of these will make that journey just that little bit stickier and tether those customers more permanently to you. And the last one here is my favorite: communicate, communicate, communicate clearly and in a timely manner. You can't underestimate the value of this when we're talking about our customers. Remember that first date analogy? How did that date go? Have you heard from them since that date? You thought it went pretty well, or you thought it went pretty badly, or you're not sure? How will you know? Think about the customer, what they discuss, what they're thinking, feeling, and doing immediately post-purchase and in those next few days. Support them in developing trust for your brand. Reach out to them or take information as to when they contact you what those issues are and try and eradicate those. Conversely, if it was a bad date, will you write them off? Could they win you back? Yes. Many organizations have been showing an opportunity for connecting with customers that may not have had a good experience in that initial period and apologizing, recognizing, and offering to do better and explaining what they will do to improve that situation going forward. So the experience I had registering, I was given a refund and no one asked me why. No one reached out to me. They've lost revenue at that point. It was an easy thing to do. Use progressive emails to set expectations, reassure customers they've made the right decision. Think about that buyer's remorse and what they may or may not be feeling. So, we all love a framework, so I've put one together for us just to summarize again what we said, as these are quite short presentations. There's a lot to cover. Measure the customer experience. I think I've talked a lot about what you can get access to. Voice of the customer is key, the programs that you have, but get those qualitative insights. Try and get a little bit more information outside of those metrics, and you can only do that by going to listen to calls or being at those interactive points or looking at your platforms more heavily for trends. A word of warning, metrics. Are you measuring the right things when you're thinking about your customer experience? You can't improve what you can't measure. Be mindful of the metrics you're using and whether they really tell you about that customer experience and the things we've talked about today. Next thing, mapping your customer journeys. Start at awareness. Work your way through to at least the first 30 days, but of course it's going to go beyond that. Use the employees that are involved and bring in the voice of the customer through them and the voice of the employee that they have about their interactions. Segment your audience, devise those personas. Design and test. We talked about solutions to those service pain points that you've had. Use your journey maps, use the metrics you've got, identify and analyze. Incremental improvements are going to be better than one all singing or dancing complicated solution which comes 6 months down the line. There's a lot of competition out there and you need to prove to customers you're making a move. And finally, innovate and communicate. You want to enhance your design and delivery. You should use your customers. You should use that voice of the customers. You should integrate customers into developing some of these solutions. This is going to provide that differentiation because it's the customer that is buying, and you need to understand how you integrate into their lives, what solutions they're looking for that you can provide them. I mean, it's the golden goose. And communicate. Check in, share advice, support, consider yourselves providing a solution to them. How can you better fit into their lives? voice of the customer is at the center of everything I've talked about today. Final thoughts. If there was one takeaway, and one thing you could do sooner rather than later to improve your customer experience in the first 30 days, create that customer journey map. Visualize and understand those interaction points that they have with you, your brand, and analyze those opportunities for correcting those pain points and build those solutions and test, communicate. Wherever possible, prioritize the low-hanging fruit and anything that makes an impact sooner rather than later. So that brings me to the end of this presentation. So I want to thank you for listening. We've grown the audience during this time, so I'm delighted. Thank you. I'm opening up to Q&A. I think, how long have we got, Mike? I've overrun a bit. 5 minutes. We've got 5 minutes, and I've just put up my LinkedIn QR code there. So are there any questions for me at all? Oh, one question. Hello.
Just want to hear more about being innovative and communicate with the customers.
Innovate and communicate?
Yes, because it can be really like a vague, or it can be more like wider framework. Just being innovative.
Be innovative. I mean, in this day and age, especially in e-commerce, we have to innovate, we have to move forward, okay? Technology is moving quickly. The expectation that customers have from different brands adjacent to yours and in competition with yours are moving forward as well. So either you can keep up or you can get ahead. So the innovate, I mean, every organization has or is thinking about having an innovation team, thinking forward, think about majorly it's technology, but it's always about customers and what customers are looking for and understanding. And I think the outside in thinking as if you were a customer and experiencing your brand through the customer's shoes, gives you an opportunity to look for those opportunities for innovation because you can then see it more clearly. But for sure, it's use a customer, get close to customers, use focus groups and forums and communities. If your brand can set up a community and a group, you can kind of moderate or get close to. That's an excellent opportunity. But yeah, that's what I mean by the innovation. Does that answer a little bit? Any other questions? If not, then thank you so much. I really appreciate you listening. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.